China's leadership has just wrapped up a meeting on the nation's 15th five-year plan, a blueprint that will guide the nation's economic and socio-development from 2026 through 2030. A brief communique highlighting key resolutions has been released with more details to follow. So what are the key takeaways from the meeting? And what are the key objectives for China's development in the next 5 years? Join us for our discussion today live from Beijing. I'm Wang Guan, sitting in for Xu Qinduo. Joining us at this hour are Professor Baocheng from the University of International Business and Economics. Ms. Radhika Desai is Director of the Geopolitical Economy Research Group. And also, Mr. Vincent Mo, Chairman of Pukai Energy Group and a member of the 13th National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, otherwise known as CPPCC. Welcome to the program, Professor Liu. Let me start with you. A lot of, details to follow, obviously, but we can kind of get a sneak peek into what are to be included in this very important document, 15th five-year plan. More high-quality development, more new productive forces, more self-reliance in advanced technologies, and also more institutional reform. What do you think, Professor Liu, are the most important policy signals that you have picked up?
Well, I think it's very encouraging and inspiring, as a matter of fact, because it really set the grand vision as how we can really move step by step closer to our goal of Chinese-style modernization, by proposing a number of frameworks that can guide the operable policies in that, as you mentioned, the high-quality production, in the green transformation, and also in the digital transformation. And that can really give a lot more predictability for the local governments and different sectors of business leaders as how they can really rally their efforts and coordinate the resources towards such sort of goal. And this is also there to propose that to the world that we are going to work together with many willing partners, but in the meanwhile, we get ready to be able to prevent certain of the external shocks that may levy on the Chinese social and also economic the environment, and so that we maintain stability, but in the meanwhile we go for the rapid transformation, and also we need to also address some of the complexities presented in the domestic market in terms of the demographic changes, in terms of the painful the structural changes going on, and to address some of the core concerns as how we can really spread more of the social welfare so that more of the people can be entitled to the public goods the government will be able to offer.
Right. Vincent, you were a member of China's key political advisory group, the CPPCC. Help us understand the significance of China's five-year plans, and this one in the making, in particular, the 15th five-year plan, which obviously the model itself was modeled after the former Soviet Union, and China, kept, adapting to changing circumstances. What are in there in this potentially approved 15th five-year plan?
Well, the 15th five-year plan, which is the blueprint for the coming 5 years. And China, after today, we had 14 five plans in the past. And these 14 five-year plans really, reshaped China and made, today's China. So going forward, especially during this period of time, we are in a very complicated, world environment and, world geopolitical relationships. So this 15th five-year plan is the pivotal, is the most important thing, at this stage for China's development in the coming 5 years.
Well, Radhika, let me ask you about this. In the past 12 years, China has been making its fair share of contribution to the global economy. Its share of the world GDP went from 11% all the way to 17%. China has registered, on average, 6% of GDP growth in the past 12 years since President Xi came into office. What are you looking for when you look at this 15th five-year plan that will be the organizing principle guiding China's socio and economic development?
Well, indeed. I mean, the whole mechanism of planning has essentially directed China's development over the last, since 1949, from an extremely poor country, underdeveloped country in the sense that, it had been set back by imperialism and so on, to becoming today an extremely modern, technologically advanced economy, which is the biggest or second biggest in the world, depending on how you count it. So this has been quite an odyssey. It has been a remarkable development. And I think that this is something, and the fact that this planning exercise continues shows that the party is committed to taking China even further to a socialist, modern socialist society, and to by the centenary to a advanced socialist society. So I think that that's all excellent. In addition to the points mentioned by the other speakers, I would say that what leaped out at me, of course, there's new quality productive forces and so on, but I think that there's more. What particularly I noticed is that there is as with all the previous plans, there is an emphasis on broader social goals. It's not just about some kind of narrow economic calculus. So I think that remains quite important. Secondly, there is an emphasis on domestic demand, which began, of course, with dual circulation, and it continues, which, in this extremely turbulent international environment will be very important for China. And a third thing that leaped out at me in the preliminary information that we have now is that there is continuing emphasis on keeping the financial system resilient and innovating it so that it will play an important role in the further development of new productive forces. And this is very, very important because one of the key things, in addition to planning, that is responsible for China's remarkable success is that its financial system is radically different from the kind of speculative, predatory financial systems that dominate the Western countries today, particularly that dominate the United States and the UK. So, I think that China, by continuing this planning, I think China is emerging as a kind of oasis of stability and, of course, a beacon of development, while, the Western world, which is, of course, unleashing all this turbulence on the world, is, of course, itself mired in a syndrome of low growth, low investment, speculative financialization. More and more people are talking about another financial crisis. So I think in this context, this exercise is really showing and supporting China's remarkable development and resilience.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about China being this oasis of stability amid all the external shocks, chaos geopolitically in the world. China, of course, also strives to be a trailblazer in terms of science and technology, in terms of innovation. That is another emphasis. The current leadership in Beijing couldn't emphasize enough the importance of self-reliance, greater self-reliance and strength in science and technology. That has been planned in this 15th five-year plan. Professor Liu, how would you rate the performance of China's innovation, indigenous innovation in basic science and technology, and also, perhaps more importantly, the application of it?
Well, I should say China has been very grateful to the global partners in in boosting its technological capacity. And objectively, we have learned quite a lot, particularly from the Western world, with regard to the basic technologies, and look at our textbooks, and be it physics, be it chemistry, biology, etc., and also even in our business school. So we adopted a lot of textbooks from overseas. So this is something that we have been very grateful. But on the other hand, China also, over the years has boosted its own investment into research and development, and particularly now we are able to amplify the existing technologies and make continuous improvements in the Japanese way of kaijin, so that we are able to put it on a larger scale, not only within the Chinese marketplace, but also spreading out across the whole world. And also that they are able to get into perfect combination with the Chinese, the large workforce, with discipline, with reasonable wage level, and also with the government support in selected industries that are in conformity with the Chinese development goal. So these really elements are coming together, are able to shore up the Chinese competitiveness in the global marketplace, and also continue to feed in to a very virtuous loop into innovation, production, and continue the research. So this is something that is very encouraging, and I think is a great showcase to many countries in the world, particularly in the global south.
Yeah, a virtuous loop, a virtuous cycle is certainly appreciated.
I think another very important thing is the Chinese industrial cluster, from building the special economic zones to the high-tech zones, and now free ports, etc. So we are able to attract also a perfect marriage between foreign companies, foreign research labs, with the Chinese development program. So this is there to they create a better alignment with the rest of the world. And a simple fact, right now we still have over 1 million foreign companies that are actively engaged in the Chinese market and working with the Chinese partners and service the global marketplace.
It is important to kick in a virtuous cycle in scientific research and the application of it. Radhika, do you want to say something before I turn to Vincent?
No, I was certainly agreeing with the previous speaker about emphasizing the importance of the links with Western countries, and I think that if China, of course, China will be a beacon to the global South, but I think even Western countries are increasingly looking to China's model. In the Western countries today, everybody's talking about industrial policy and so on. So I think that and the kind of virtuous circle that he talked about, with innovation, with self-reliance, new quality productive forces. China's achievements in self-reliance achievements in technology today are being discussed around the world. Earlier this year, as you know, with the launch of DeepSeek's R1 model, people started talking about a Sputnik moment. So I think that, again, the whole innovation system as it's organized in the Western countries could do by looking at China's innovation system, which has been able to produce such technological leaders. And of course, the other thing I always talk about is that the Australian Strategic Policy Research Institute, which is, I forget the exact name, but the Strategic Policy Institute anyway, it tracks, which countries are leaders in which technologies, and out of some 67 technologies that it tracks, China was leading in only a handful, like 3 or 4 in the beginning of this century. Whereas today it is leading in the overwhelming majority, about 57 or so out of 64. That is pretty remarkable achievement.
Yeah, talking about the great leap forward, there's some statistics to back it up. Vincent, let me ask you about this. But before I do, here is some figures. In 2024, total R&D spending by China was 48%. That is an increase from 2020, that was 5 years ago. China did rank number 1 in one thing, at least one thing. That is funding for basic research and also the staffers, the personnel involved in science and technology. How do you look at the debate between quantity versus quality when it comes to China's science and technology development?
Yeah, we are in a sort of a turning point, in a sense, 3-5 years ago. Before that, we focused very much on the quantity, the scale of the economy and the scale of everything. That's happened in the past 25 plus years after China reopens its door to the outside world. And since 3-5 years ago, we have been turning to focus more on the quality of everything, quality development, quality production, quality research and development. So I think it's very right. Wherever we go now, we see the blue skies and the environment has been in a super condition. So that's really quality of life. So back to the question about R&D, I think that's the key of everything. Other speakers have been talking about technologies. It's also my belief that technologies is driving everything behind China's quality development. In this 15th 5-year plan, we can see the technology innovation, it's everywhere. It's across all the industries. It's not only technology part.
Vincent, I want to ask you this because you were really a founder of Fund.com, that is China's own Redfin, if you will, China's largest, what used to be China's largest property selling and buying and rental website anywhere in China. How would you compare the innovation business model ecosystem back then when you were founding that website and that property conglomerate, I would say, versus the innovation ecosystem now?
Well, yeah, I experienced all of this. I started my own company 26 years ago. We focus very much on the internet and the big data. And now we're still there, but with new energy. Very interesting. 20 years ago, we copy a lot of things from the United States and other developed countries in the world, from Western countries. We copied our business model from other developed countries. We copied some technology from other developed countries as well. And 25 years after, now when I'm restarting something new in new energy, and we're using our own technology, we're using our own business model. So China is now leading in the new energy sector, with the electric bikes, electric, cars, and everything electric. So that's the big difference. Repeatedly, 20, 25 years ago, we copy a lot of things from developed countries, and now we are the origin of most of the technology, or at least some key technologies. So that's something very different.
Yeah, it's also very inspiring and encouraging. EV sectors that you've mentioned is certainly a bright spot when it comes to China's big consumer market. But in this 15th 5-year plan, or a communique of it emphasized building this unified domestic market of China. How should we read that, Professor Liu?
I think there's been a lot of confusion over whether it's going to build a fortress of the marketplace against the rest of the world, or whether China is going to streamline some of the procedures and quality standard so that we can build a better market efficiency to reduce the cost of doing business, not only for Chinese, the business community, but also for the whole world. I think definitely it is really the latter. So the dual circulation is there to call that we are not really running on a separate scale, that we're dealing with exports to other markets, but in the meanwhile we segregate the Chinese marketplace against the world. So that's totally wrong. Now, I think now, given that China has such a vast marketplace, and also there are so many regional differences going on, so therefore, to streamline this based on the foundation of infrastructure connectivity, we need far more institutional reform so that the compliance can be there to follow more of a unified national standard. And also the local protectionism is also something that's blocked the efficiency. And then I think the other very important thing is the rule of law, because in many localities still some of the executive branches are overshadowing the Justice Department, and in a matter of transparency, in a matter of rulemaking process, in a matter of how to really create the right type of environment for doing business, particularly from outsiders, etc. And so this is there to streamline the Chinese domestic market in order to better prepare actually for global participation on a two-way traffic.
To what extent does this unified national market have to do with a relatively low percentage of consumption in the makeup of China's GDP?
Well, there's a large potential because by basic calculation, it can really unlock at least more than 1% of the Chinese GDP if certain procedures are streamlined, and also the facilitation in passing, for example, the toll gates, and also to have a unified rule as how to treat the green agro products in the fast lane, and also how the drugs made in, for example, in Hebei can really penetrate into the Shanghai market. This is also something that we need to have a core line. And the other issue is that for people's mobility, because we have nearly 300 million people that are working in the cities, in coastal areas, but they still have their households registration at home. So, this type of market as how to support them, with the social welfare, with the insurance, and also even with their marriage registration. So that's something that can give people the sense of entitlement into the government benefits, and more importantly, that can really alleviate their psychological worries as how they can really get more committed to their existing jobs, etc. So, these are really the issues that can, give a better boost towards the innovation, toward marketplace, and also reducing both the consumption cost and also the production cost, not to mention logistics.
Yeah, certainly a lot of room for fine-tuning of policies. Radhika, what do you think has the Western world been missing when they look at China's reform and its economic development over the years? Because we get simplistic headlines about what's happening inside China, things that are often written by those who have never visited China or reported around China.
Absolutely. I think that, take for example, even people who have visited China often are drawing odd sort of lessons. So one of the things that is doing the rounds these days is, you were mentioning dual circulation and so on, and the level of investment versus consumption in the Chinese GDP. A lot of the Western press has been touting, a simple message that China must increase domestic consumption, etc. Now, while of course there is absolutely nothing wrong in increasing domestic consumption, after all, the purpose of development is to increase the material standard of living of ordinary people. But the consumption over the last 70, 75 years has increased while investment has remained high. So reducing the proportion of investment and increasing the proportion of consumption is not the issue. The issue is keeping up the high growth rate, which has been powered by increased investment, which of course at the same time increases absolutely the level of consumption. And I think that this is where China is, and probably where China will remain. Another really interesting piece of news, especially given the emphasis placed on new productive forces, high quality productive forces and high quality development, is that there is now, the IMF, I was noticing the IMF has basically been complaining in its latest World Economic Outlook that factor misallocation has been occurring as a result of China's industrial policy, and that it may have reduced China's productivity by 1.2% and its GDP by about 2%. Now, essentially what this is saying is that China is essentially subsidizing its research and development too much. But again, and this point, by the way, was also then taken up by a writer in the Financial Times and so on. But the fact is that no country has developed a wide and solid technological capacity without some element of what you may call, lack of efficiency or whatever, because it's a type of inefficiency that you need to be able to afford in order to build up your technological base. And I think that so China does not, must be very careful. I mean, I'm sure the Chinese government is very careful. Otherwise, it would have, gone off in a different direction a long time ago. So I think it's a very good thing that the party leadership is very aware that it should not be listening to these siren calls, which are essentially peddling a neoliberal idea of development. The great genius of China's development is that while it has harnessed market forces, it has precisely avoided the trap of getting trapped into neoliberalism.
Yeah, I mean, harnessing market forces is certainly important, and there has always been this debate about how much government is too much. It is certainly a delicate, fine line here. Vincent, let me ask you about this, because you know this better than many, that we're having some issues with the property market, and there has been an issue of oversupply in some parts and in some cities around the country. There has been this structural shift into new sectors. For example, the 15th five-year plan said explicitly that China will focus aggressively on a few things, on intelligence sector, on the green sector, and on having this integrated development in the e-commerce, so on and so forth. What do you think will be the drivers driving the Chinese economy in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, we're happy to see in the proposed, 15th five-year plan. It covers all the aspects, including technology, innovation, AI, and real estate, all of this. So I think the fundamental drivers behind this 15th five-year plan, it's multiple aspects. Technology, innovation, that's definitely the key thing, behind everything. Everything will be driven by this technology and innovations. Other than that, domestic consumption and also unified, consumption, rules, regulations, that's also very, very important behind. Other than that, I'm in the real estate sector, real estate, the internet sector. I'm always optimistic in property market. That's the biggest, assets, behind every country. So I believe now the property market is under tremendous pressure, after 20 plus years high growth. But I think the time it will take another, 1 or 2 years to cool down everything. And after that, with the general economy there, I'm quite in confidence that the property market will come back again. Of course, come back again with the quality, growth development, rather than something happened in the past, random, growth. So that's something in my mind. I'm pretty much sure, with all of the drivers behind this five-year plan, China's future will be very, very promising.
Very quickly, you think the property market will bottom up or so in the next couple of years and having a kind of a consolidation?
Yeah, that's my belief. We have been watching and following the market very much. We published China's index, property index. So we are around somewhere, but it's not stable yet. It's still fluctuating. So I think to be a little bit conservative, 1 to 2 years is probably needed for the property market to bottom out. So after that, I'm always optimistic, especially in China, and I think the property market will contribute a lot to the general economy again.
Let's hope that will be the case. Thanks so much for all the guests for their fantastic insights. We learned a lot, and that will do it for this edition of Dialogue. I'm Wang Guan sitting in for Xu Xinduo. See you next time.